Hi, I'm Christian Triola, author of The Missing Method for Guitar, books designed to help you master your instrument one step at a time. And in today's video, we're going to talk about technique. So to start off, what is guitar technique? You hear a lot of people talking about it and saying you have to develop it, but it's always a little bit vague. So technique is the physical act of playing the guitar. It's getting your hands on the instrument and producing some sound. And so with techniques, you can kind of isolate it into one of two groups. You're either using your fret hand technique or your picking hand technique. And of course, there's a lot of different techniques that you can use with both. So let's start off with the fret hand. With the fretting hand, you have basic techniques, which is just getting your hand on the instrument in the best and most comfortable way. So what a lot of people do is they just kind of grab hold of the neck. You may have seen me mention this in some other videos, and that's not what you want to do. Instead, you want to use your fingertips, and if each finger gets a fret, your hand should look something like this, where you have the fingers on the outside kind of pointing in, and the middle fingers just straight on the neck. And so no matter where you're at, whether it's the first string or the last string, your fingers should look about the same and feel about the same. When you do that, your wrist should be down here as well. You don't want it up here like this, kind of jarred or bent. Instead, you want it down below so that this part of the hand right here runs parallel with the neck. And that's your basic technique. The next thing you want to develop is your scale technique. And what that means, it's a lot like the basic technique, except now you're targeting specific notes of a major, minor, or pentatonic, or some other kind of scale. And so with that, you want to make sure you're using the same fingers for the same notes every time. So when you go to play a scale, let's say G major, for example, each finger is assigned a note. You know when you're playing the G, you're using that middle finger. You know when you're playing the note A, you're using the pinky finger. So it doesn't change. The next time you play, you don't want to use 1 and 3 or just 1 and jump around. You want to make sure that each finger is assigned its own note. So every time you play that scale, those fingers know exactly what to do. Next up is chord technique. And so for open chords, for example, you want to have your fingers up on their tips so that they're not hitting the other strings unintentionally. I've had a lot of students over the years that go to play a C chord, for example. It ends up sounding something like this. They have some of the notes there, but some of them are deadened because their fingers aren't up on their tips. And it takes some getting used to. If you're on an acoustic guitar especially, it can be a little bit harder on your fingers to get in that position that you want, so you have a nice clear sound with your chords. So that's basic chord technique, when you make sure that your fingers are in the right spots and that they're clearing any open strings so everything comes out nice and clear. Next on the list is articulation techniques. And what that means, there are ways you can play notes to add a little bit more element of expression. So some of those techniques are hammer-ons, where, for example, you have one finger down, and then you don't pick the next note. You just let your finger hammer on to that note. You also have pull-offs, where you have two fingers down, and the finger pulls off the string so that you can hear the note that is underneath the other finger. And so I like to call those pluck offs, because you're kind of using this finger here to pluck the string a little bit. And so you also have things like sliding, where you can slide from wherever you want, or just a single fret. And those little slides can really add something to your playing. So next we're going to talk about some of the picking hand techniques. And in the video there I can't really show, so I'm going to try to lift up the guitar and kind of give you an idea of what some of the things I'm talking about are. But with the picking hand, you have the basic technique. When you're playing a single note, for example, you simply hold the pick, like this, so that you're kind of making that OK symbol type thing. And then when you hit a single note, you pick downward, and your pick can actually touch the string below it. So that's basic picking technique, just going downstroke and making sure that your sound is clear and followed through. Another type of picking technique is alternate picking. And that, of course, is when you go down and then up. So you can kind of hear that there and see what I'm doing. Another picking technique is called economy picking. And that is when you're switching strings quickly, and instead of going down and up all the time, you're kind of going in the direction of the strings. You might go down, down, up, or down, 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 up, or something along those lines. So you're not just switching your hand back and forth over and over again. Then, of course, you have sweep picking, which is a more advanced technique that really involves both hands. It's not just the technique of the pick, it's also what's going on in the fretting hand that makes sweep picking happen. And then finally on this list of basic techniques, we have fingerstyle techniques, which when you put the pick down and you just use your fingers to play the instrument. And you can do that as far as strumming chords goes, or you can do individual notes, something that sounds like this. And there you have it. These are just some of the techniques that you'll want to eventually work on so that you can have full control over your playing.